warning, and then we do have the tornado warnings that are off to the east. So we have that new warning. The Weather Service just said radar indicated in terms of that one that's around Manchester. We then have the ones down to the south. We've already seen damage out of these. Let's go toward Bennett, down to the south. Look at the radar signature, the velocity signature on that.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
No.
And that's hard to say, at least in that, right about here.
Yeah, that's a sign that there could be a tornado ongoing now.
And south of Clarence.
And then we have that south of Clarence
that one's
with debris. So we have these two spots where we likely have tornadoes ongoing. I'm going to show you an image that's from Kyoto. Oh. And this is where we had a tornado come through. We had talked about it. And, oh, this is just not what you want to see. Cars flipped and the trees just completely shredded. And unfortunately, we still have this situation going on. I hope this sets in reality, and it's an awful thing to deal with, but we want to make sure that we're taking this seriously. The tweet there says there were no injuries, so we are thankful for that. You have to take these warnings seriously. We are seeing these rapidly develop and rapidly change, and we have told you multiple times, these towns that are seeing these tornadoes. We've shown you the tornadoes live on the air. It is happening. That is why we have been highlighting this day for a week. And we have multiple areas we still could be experiencing tornadoes.
So that's what I'm pointing out here. I just want to point out, too, it's not the strongest signature here on the velocity product. Granted, within the past two scans, that has picked up in its contrast a little bit more. But it has been more telling of this little wrapping hook from the base reflectivity. So all that rain has been getting wrapped around this little nugget. Despite the velocity is not the cleanest, I mean, granted, that beam is also having to shoot through a lot of heavy precipitation to get to that.
Down to the south.
Which could muddy up the velocity. The velocity itself, but that hooking shape there could also be indicating that the Anamosa area, you guys do need to be taking shelter right now.
And then toward Monticello. So they're kind of shortening that one. They're shortening that warning a little bit. But definitely something we should keep an eye on. We have the warning in Manchester, at least an indication of strong winds, if nothing else. If there's not a tornado, there's some very strong winds. We have the Anamosa cell, then down to the south, Garrett, we have this tornado warning. Around Clarence has probably been one of the more clear signatures, unfortunately, of the possibility of a tornado just to the east of Clarence. This is the one we were talking about crossing I-35, or Highway 30, not I-35, Highway 30. And then we have some of these notches here, but just southeast of Clarence, and then down to the south and the southern part of Cedar County here around Bennett, that is likely a tornado ongoing right now. That is right around the Bennett area. If you're in Bennett, you need to be in your shelter right now. This is going to then cross out of Cedar County, but there could potentially be a tornado ongoing. We've seen from our product that is able to show us debris, that there has been debris getting picked up. And this is close to the radar. This is likely a situation that's ongoing where we do have the debris going on that's not going to be anything that's falling from another storm. That was a pretty clear signature there in Bennett and Cedar County in the southeast, south of Tipton. But we have multiple zones, and we have had multiple tornadoes that have been confirmed today, and we have had damage in multiple spots as well. And I know that it is not the ideal situation when we have obviously the Iowa game that's going on today, and people that want to travel maybe to Iowa City. But there is a situation in Coralville right now that around the Coral Ridge Mall, there is a lot of damage that has been ongoing. There are power lines that are down, and we do have a lot of people that are likely going to be doing a lot of work around the Coralville area. So just something to keep in mind, that if you had those plans tonight, you might want to think about changing them. And we're going to work to get some more information about that, of course, as we go through the next couple of hours. But we do know there is quite a situation in Coralville. Have we gotten anything?
Storm report from Vinton, Barnesdown near Vinton after initial line went through. Possible tornado. That was at
We had been talking about Vinton. We had talked about that signature in Vinton, in Benton County.
Yeah, in Johnson County right now, when we talked earlier, there was just almost like 50 people. There's now 6,000 folks who are without power there. I assume near that Coral Ridge Mall area where we still don't have our Skycam. It might be power's down or power's out in that location for right now, but that camera is not working. That likely caught what maybe have been a tornado on it. So there's certainly a lot of issues going on out there in terms of infrastructure that has been completely demolished by this.
I'd say there's probably...
Okay, looks like that Manchester one's been confirmed as well now.
They're saying confirmed.
Yep, okay. That was confirmed as of 5:32, so about a couple minutes ago.
And in pea-sized hail and Palo. So
expanding the Anamosa tornado.
We have, that tornado warning, as Garrett was pointing out there. Tornado warning, let's see, Manchester, they're not really saying much in terms of if there's a spotter on it or not, but large and extremely dangerous tornado over Delaware or near Manchester, moving northeast at 40 miles per hour. And then we have the extension of the other one that's kind of going to meet up with that. So we haven't had a lot of spotter reports, at least, of, Manchester, buildings down on Burrington Road and South 5th, power poles also down. So that may be why they ended up upgrading that.
Looks like the Bennett one is now confirmed as well. That is going to start to move more towards the Quad Cities viewing areas that moves through. I believe that is now portions of Clinton County.
And the Weather Service also pointing out the debris that we were seeing down near Bennett.
Yep, that's a lot clearer now within that last scan here.
They are continuing that warning to the east because of it. That'll be getting out of our area into Clinton and Scott counties. I know that people still watch us there.
Still going to have to watch out for that Clarence area. I believe that was also confirmed not too long ago as well. Probably within the past 5 or so minutes, I think we saw that pop up for at least a confirmation.
We continue to get these reports of damage. Here's a look at damage from around the Coralville area. So this is cars flipped, obviously, roofs off the building there. And we were just talking about that Coral Ridge Mall area, and we could see it on our Skycam. So around Coralville, we talked about just west of Iowa City, around Tiffin and North Liberty, those areas where we were concerned. So there's a damage to some homes, trailer flip there around Coralville, large structural damage, and this is the reality of today, unfortunately. And we're not done. But damage has been happening, and it's continuing to be ongoing. We have seen damage from Johnson County that has been going now, these storms, into portions of Cedar and Jones counties, and still indication of tornadoes that are ongoing, likely especially down in Bennett, in Cedar County. And meteorologist Nick Stewart is out in the Solon area right now. Nick, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, I can tell you there's a lot of people walking around kind of assessing the state of things here in Solon. We did see power lines down right near the center of town. We do have power crews on scene. Also, firefighters have been walking around town. There's a lot of tree damage through town as well, a lot of branches down. So we're kind of still trying to get a feel for exactly what the town of Solon went through. We do have other reports of some more damage in town. We're just trying to figure out exactly where that may be. Right now, we're just turned off of Main Street onto South Iowa Street. You can see some flashing lights up ahead. So there's clearly something happening here. You can see some crews working on removing some tree debris up the road as well. So we're just kind of walking around town right now trying to figure out and assess what's happening at this hour. As soon as we kind of find a little bit more information, we will come let you know.
Yeah, no, we had talked about the possibility of there being something around the Solon area on Highway 1 there, and there's been some reports around Lisbon then to the north where there was 70-mile-per-hour winds. So obviously damage, and you can see kind of just some debris scattered around town there in Solon. We have the reports of damage around the Coralville area, and we talked about just around North Liberty and Tiffin. So it was right in between, just to the west of Iowa City, where that occurred. We now have additional tornado warnings going up in Cedar and Jones counties.
This is confirmed.
This is a new one that's coming out here. So Oxford Junction, just between Massillon and Oxford Junction, possibly there is where a rotation is. It's possible we're seeing multiple areas of rotation in these lines. Yeah, that's what I was thinking there, perhaps.
Kind of triangulating it based on the report too.
So that's a new one until 6:30. But golf ball sized hail, also a possibility there. And we have this storm that is moving. What are they saying? 55 miles per hour. So we have strong winds and large hail that's a possibility here. You can see Nick showing us the damage there around Lost Nation, Oxford Junction, Monmouth, Crabtown, Otter Creek, Lamont. That's getting into portions of Jackson County there. But Cedar, Jones, Clinton, and Jackson counties under this new tornado warning until 6:30. And they're saying observed with this.
Make sure I'm grabbing the extended one here.
Yeah,
still 6:30.
Yeah,
okay.
6:30.
Sure.
So you can hear the wind here howling in Cedar Rapids, and thunderstorms coming through here. We did have the sirens going off because of 70-mile-per-hour winds. I mean, very strong winds ongoing right now here in Cedar Rapids. Can we go to the closer look at Cedar Rapids right now? It must be just on the back side of these storms.
It is. It's the line we were talking about earlier today.
We have then the second line that is coming in, and we have a severe thunderstorm warning. I can hear the wind pounding against the door here. And there's still some strong winds. If we go to the velocity there, too, you can see a Skycam just shaking there. And winds 44 miles per hour.
That's from the airport, I believe.
The airport, our camera. And then if we go to the velocity, even around the Cedar Rapids area, we have some pretty strong winds that are going on with this line. It might be, there we go. You can see it right there. So we do have strong winds coming in. It could be around 70 miles per hour. And the velocity is picking up 70, so it could be closer to perhaps 75 to 80 miles per hour. Meteorologist Nick Stewart is out in the Solon area where a tornado potentially has gone through there, and you can see a large tree that is down. This is possibly some very strong winds or a tornado. And Nick, I know you've said that you saw power lines down as well. Is there any structural damage that you've seen in town?
As far as we can tell, it seems like most of the buildings are okay. We did see a few shingles off of a few roofs and things like that, but the main thing that we're seeing in Solon is tree damage. We obviously have a large tree down, and you can see the people on the left side of that tree to kind of give some perspective of just how large it is. And we'll swing over. We're on South Dubuque Street at the intersection of 2nd Street, East 2nd Street, and you can see crews are also working on this other side of the road. It did not take long for the city crews to do their job and start clearing the roads. There's another large tree that is blocking East 2nd Street just west of Dubuque Street. So there's obviously a lot of tree damage in town. Thankfully, it doesn't appear that we're seeing anything significant in terms of building damage, but we will keep you updated. Otherwise, again, these storms are still not quite done. It's still rather windy. A lot of people walking around. If you are in a damaged area, one thing to keep in mind, of course, is down power lines. Be very mindful of power lines that may be down if you are assessing the damage. Better yet, just wait till the storms are over with and let utility crews kind of take control of the situation.
Really good news there, and we've been talking about, too, the fact that we've had so much damage around the Coralville area, and if people are thinking about going down that way for the, Iowa game or anything like that, we need to give time for these crews to get things just cleaned up here. We have a lot of reports of power lines down in a lot of spots. It looks like hail coming down here in Cedar Rapids and strong winds, and we do have still these tornado warnings ongoing, of course, and there could be more damage. So we have this situation with multiple tornado warnings, multiple storms that have produced damage and tornadoes, and we are not yet done. The Weather Service is saying for Dubuque County, 80-mile-per-hour winds for that storm that's heading just out of our area. And so, I'm sorry, Garrett, we got to get to the east here. So you can see the bright kind of yellows and reds showing up there. We have the 70-mile-per-hour winds or so moving through the Cedar Rapids area and heading to the east, and we have these multiple tornado warnings ongoing, and then we have the issue of these other areas that have dealt with the damage. We have more photos out of the Coralville area, and this is roof damage, and you can just see things tattered. And this was just to the west of Iowa City around the Coral Ridge Mall, and this is the Coralville Hy-Vee area, well, near it, near the Coralville Hy-Vee, where damage has been done. We've had reports of tornadoes with this storm, and this is just unfortunately one of the spots that we have seen damage from. So cars being flipped, the trees that are down, and homes that have been damaged, buildings that have been damaged, some significant damage around a heavily populated area around Coralville. And we still have tornado warnings that are happening right now. This is why we have this PDS tornado watch that has been out. Particularly dangerous situation, long-lived tornadoes. The tornado that went through the Coralville area originated from around the Ottumwa area and kept on going to the north and east, these long-lived tornadoes. So we have around Wheatland still some circulation on the south side, perhaps there. We have then Lost Nation and Baldwin area could have some gusty winds. We have these tornado warnings here. And then around Monticello.
That little beam there you're seeing is actually the Amazon shipping depot
facility.
That's just off towards the northwest of the radome.
Yeah,
so
that's a little muddy and hard to see. And then we have the other one that's confirmed, and there was some damage coming out of that one around Manchester. And so there's a possibility the Weather Service is saying that that's still confirmed. There was some damage around Manchester, so it's possible that there's still a tornado ongoing there. There's a lot of just bright colors that is indicating the fact that even if there are not tornadoes happening, there are very strong winds around 70 to 80 miles per hour likely happening too that can do damage as well. That is why we said treat every warning today as it's happening, and we have these fast-moving storms that have been developing very quickly. We have meteorologist Nick Stewart, who's out in Solon, and Nick, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, what appears to be the roof was ripped off of this building here on the corner of East Main as well as Highway 1. The hardware store, also El Sol Mexican Cuisine, the roof appears to have been ripped off there. Firefighters were walking around the scene to kind of assess that situation. While we were checking out some of the other debris, we did get a report that potentially some houses sustained damage on the west side of Solon as you're coming in off of Highway 382 Northeast. So we're going to check that to make sure the neighborhood is doing okay over there. But thankfully, for the most part, at least in the core of Solon, as far as we can tell, it's primarily just tree debris or tree damage. But we're going to check on this report of house damage on the west side of town.
Thank you, Nick. And out of some highly populated areas, we had talked about that kind of just between Iowa City, Tiffin area, and Coralville, and you were just there too. And we were talking about that area of circulation and seeing damage coming there. We have then power lines that are down other spots, and we still have tornadoes that are ongoing at this time. And these tornadoes have had a history of being large and of producing damage. And we have not seen any additional reports yet. We had that one that was in southern Cedar County. It's getting lines, but it seems like that one had moved out. And we have this additional storm going into Davenport, but that Bennett one that was definitely showing a signature for tornado debris has moved out now toward Wheatland. Then there's this one that's moved out of Jones County heading into Maquoketa. And we still have this warning here. We do also have then the warning to the north, Monticello, Cascade, that has just regular tornado on it, does not have the confirmed signature on it, but we do have a lot of areas of rotation and potentially some strong winds. Have we gotten any additional reports with these latest warnings?
This one keeps moving over.
I've got a couple of kind of updates on terms of some damage and whatnot that's kind of going on, or still. Just a real quick note from the Johnson County Emergency Management that they are really quickly trying to get public safety that is still responding and it's assessing some of that damage. And just a word of note for anybody who might be around power lines right now, just assume that they are live, that there's still a charge to them. Very dangerous situation, especially in those areas that have been hardest hit.
Yeah, they're saying buildings down in Coralville, they have the power lines that are down they're going to have to assess. Springville has roof damage. There's, let's see, 69 mile-per-hour winds in Cedar Rapids. We've had semis blown over. We've had all these pictures that we've been seeing that of the damage, and this is around the Coralville area once again. So unfortunately, highly populated area that has had damage around Coralville, around the Coral Ridge Mall that we had been pointing out that was nearby. We saw it on our sky cam, the tornado going through. Johnson County Emergency Management saying multiple tornadoes. They have damage in Hills. They have damage in Coralville, of course, they're having to assess. And so this is what we were concerned about, a long day of multiple tornadoes coming through. And still we have rotation ongoing, and we have the possibility of there still being tornadoes in the area. Now, we do have currently these tornado warnings that are out. There's not been a lot of reports recently from the Weather Service in terms of anything additional from these storms in terms of confirmation of a tornado happening right now. So that is good news. But
I was going to say something to note, too, is how rain ramped these guys are getting, too.
Yes. It's hard to know because they are likely dealing with, we're dealing with a lot of heavy rainfall. We're also dealing with the fact of it's been going on for a while now, and these storms eventually will lose that tornado potential and kind of turn into more of a wind threat as we have been seeing. And that's why we still continue to have these severe thunderstorm warnings in effect for the winds of 70 to 80 miles per hour. So we do have the severe thunderstorm warnings that are just to the east of Cedar Rapids. This one is for, let's see, 70 mile per hour winds, and could be some hail in there too. And even if you're not experiencing so much rain, we are dealing with we're also dealing with the strong winds on the backside of the system. We have these then multiple tornado warnings. We're still saying confirmed tornado around Manchester, which is pretty far away from a radar site, so we're going to have a concern with that. That goes out until 6:15. We have these warnings too that are out now, but these expire at 6:15. It would be dependent on if we have continued circulation with these storms, if they continue these down up to the north and east. But the rotation would probably be somewhere between Monticello and Cascade with this, and we also then have the strong winds, heavy rain on the north side. I want to mention what's going on as a whole here with this storm. We have this whole system is coming through, and it is going to be producing some very strong winds on the backside. So we have a large area of low pressure that's coming through the entirety of the area. Let's see if I can get this satellite going. Oh, no. So we have this tornado watch that's posted right now that goes until 8 p.m. We do have the thunderstorms largely starting to push toward the Mississippi as we were anticipating through the through the day here, getting to the east of the Mississippi close to 7 p.m., which should still be on track. The issue then becomes what's happening behind this. And we are going to have some very strong winds that come in on the backside, which could cause some problems with cleanup. We have these wind advisories posted for the state that goes until updated map, so I apologize. But we do have, let's see, I'm trying to get to some of the winds that's going on. So we have this large storm system that in Des Moines, where storms have already moved through, we're talking about 43-mile-per-hour winds, 51 in Pierre, South Dakota, 46 in Grand Island. And this is going to be reality for the rest of the night, that we're going to have some strong winds and some much colder air that's going to be moving into place as well. And we have we had temperatures today that have been close to 70 degrees. And now look at what's happening to the north and west. We have some very cold air that's going to be coming in. And for the cleanup efforts that are going to be going on, plus dealing with the wind, it is going to be a bitter night tonight into tomorrow with these winds picking up and this colder air that's starting to arrive. So we do have right now these severe thunderstorm warnings as a result of this large contrast between the warm air and the cold air and this just volatile atmosphere that we've had today. And that's why we had the high risk issued for the area. We had the particularly dangerous situation watch posted, and it has come to reality, unfortunately, that we do have all of these warnings, all of this damage that has happened, that has come into place, and we have still the situation ongoing with multiple tornado warnings. Now, we do have this confirmed one in Manchester. We haven't seen much information from the Weather Service recently. And then we have this large area of a severe thunderstorm warning, and that includes just the rest of eastern Iowa here. And we are going to continue to watch for 70 to 80 mile per hour winds and the possibility that we could still be seeing some areas of circulation. I wouldn't be surprised to let this warning go. It seems like a lot of that's moved to the east here, and then we'll have to watch this one into Dubuque County. We do have, let's zoom in on that one around Dubuque. Not a lot of, it's tough to say with that.
See if we can switch to the cross radar so that gives us any better.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
No.
It seems like they maybe need to let this warning go. It goes until 6:15, but I don't see much indication there. They're still saying confirmed because there was damage around Manchester, but I haven't seen.
I guess there's a little bit on the back end of that. There's south of 13 there.
Okay. So it's possible it's kind of just another zone of circulation there around Highway 20.
Nope. That's hard to say, too.
It is. It's getting a little tougher there. So we do still have these multiple warnings, and we're going to just be keeping an eye on that and see if we get any more information. We had been talking about the inflow with this. It's been kind of wrapping around, but I don't think we've gotten any information out of this necessarily recently.
And that's pretty broad, especially with that little eye shape there.
Yeah.
It's becoming what's known as occluded, essentially. You're having a lot of it wrapping itself, so it should choke itself out here pretty quick.
So hopefully these continue to weaken in terms of the tornado sense. Unfortunately, we still have the strong winds to deal with. Kason, what's going on?
We do have a little bit of update. Obviously, Clinton County is starting to get a little bit out of our area, but we did just have a confirmation from law enforcement that a tornado is on the ground there in Clinton County, northbound on highway or near Highway 61, just to the west of DeWitt. So that is still producing.
So that was the one that we were watching out of Bennett.
Yes. Yep. That one is producing a tornado. Confirmed by law enforcement.
Pretty clear.
Yeah, there's a really strong signature there in terms of a tornado. I know some people maybe still are watching and get our signal, certainly, so we will mention it just south of Welton there, crossing Highway 61 off to the north and east towards Charlotte, Petersville, Goose Lake. So that is certainly an area of concern there. And we have to keep a very close eye on these other storms because, I mean, still, even as they're, continue to push into the east here, they're still producing these tornadoes. And there's, Charlotte, Van Buren, Andover, Savannah within the next basically 30 minutes, fast-moving storms. And that would be then getting to the east of the Mississippi. We do have these other ones still kind of hugging to the east here. and we have had these storms that have produced large, damaging tornadoes.
And actually, add to that, too, as a lot of these tornadoes do start to wrap up, again, you got to keep in mind that a lot of these storms have been lifting a lot of really heavy, dense air recently. All that has been lifted up. So as this all starts to sink a little bit on the back end of this, that's where a lot of these fast-moving straight-line winds are really going to become a much more of a problem. I know we've been talking about it throughout our day today, too. A lot of that, once this line starts to form, that's when these really strong winds starts to develop. And I know Rebecca's pointing this out, too. There's that large line starting to form as it does continue to track its way out, despite the fact that the actual area of low pressure is more towards northern portions of the state of Iowa. The initial line of the dry line itself pushing further out is continuing to at least move past the Mississippi River, but still kind of floating along that Highway 61 line from pretty much Dubuque all the way down to the Quad Cities area, with a handful of those warnings still kind of hanging around. Fortunately, you can kind of see with that Manchester one, it's still hanging steadily with a Delaware County one, I should say. A lot of the heavier portions of that yellow that you're seeing there is on the kind of the midway point of that warning, meaning they might just allow that one to expire without looking at it, at least with any updates recently. Have you guys seen anything confirmed?
Yeah, they haven't really been saying much, but they're continuing. They have so many tornado warnings. It's possible that some of these are not taking a super close look at, and they're not letting go right away. But
yeah, see, there was that rotation. Looks like it just went north of that whole warning.
Yeah.
Into Colesburg area.
So
Fort Guttenberg.
We'll keep an eye on that, certainly, and still some very strong winds, too, with these storms around 7. And, Nick, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of damage in town.
Yeah, we're on the far west side of town. When you come into town on the west side, we're in one of these new developments. It's Trail Ridge, which you can see is some of these new built homes here. The actual part of the roof was ripped off, exposing a lot of the interior of the building, a lot of the insulation ripped off as well. And what's so interesting is if you look down closer towards the side of the road, you can almost see the tornado cross literally right here. The tree on the right is angled off to the left, and the tree on the far left is angled to the right. So you can actually see the spin and the way the damage kind of rolled right on through. Off to my right, we have some tree damage and things like that over here, but Solon is actually behind me. So some of the damage that we saw in the town of Solon, that was likely actually what we call RFD, or rear flank downdraft. Just really strong winds wrapping on the back side of the tornado. That's most of the damage we saw in town. And again, if you kind of look off this way, you can kind of see some of the damage to the treetops over there, just kind of cut off right near the top. We've been talking to several people in town. Thankfully, we're not aware of any injuries. And the good news here, too, is that everybody we talked to got the warning and took shelter. So thankfully, one of them actually alluded to the fact that the days of notice ahead of time, the amount of warning that we've been giving people for the last week, really set the tone that they knew that they would probably take shelter today. So thankfully, no reports of injuries thus far in Solon. Unfortunately, though, we have seen many reports of damage in town.
And, Nick, as we have been talking about, another issue with this system, too, is the fact that we now have the winds that are going to pick up to, not even related to thunderstorms. So are you seeing a lot of, tree limbs and branches hanging that people maybe need to think about, too?
Yeah, when we were in Solon itself, when we were driving around, we saw those big trees that were knocked over and things like that. Most of that was tree debris. Again, over here on the far west side is where we see more structural damage. So that's kind of where the tornado appears to have come, quite literally right through this Trail Ridge subdivision. But again, in town itself, it's mainly just tree damage. We saw a lot of very large trees down, tree limbs down, power lines hanging in some of those limbs. Thankfully, again, just to show the power of it, I'm actually kind of looking over a little bit closer at some of the damage here. Zim, if you look at the far right, you can actually see an air conditioner unit that clearly was just ripped from wherever it came from and just kind of deposited there. It really just goes to show the force of this tornado. And, of course, the garage doors on the houses themselves also kind of bent into shape. I believe these houses, as you can kind of tell by the driveway, are still new construction. I don't think anybody was actually living here in this area. But also, of course, you have the porta potty that's knocked over as well, just kind of showing the intensity of the winds that were coming through town here.
Yeah, that's obviously a sign, especially that air conditioning unit. And the other concern, too, is just, any of this debris that's sitting around, we then have the issue of the winds picking up on the backside, too. And we are so thankful that there weren't any injuries and that, we're still seeing damage coming out of the Coralville area. We saw cars flipped over there. And you're briefly on our Skycam, too. This was a situation that we knew we could have multiple violent tornadoes today, and unfortunately, we've seen it come to fruition.
Not only just multiple tornadoes, but multiple storms that produced multiple tornadoes. We were originally on this storm way out west towards the Malcolm area where we got that tornado, the big stovepipe tornado, and then we had those big tornadoes in Keokuk County as well, those big wedge tornadoes. We clearly had tornadoes as they moved to the Coralville and Solon area. There might be even more damage kind of in this subdivision. We'll check that out in a minute. Yeah, multiple reports of damage, multiple tornadoes clearly have occurred from multiple different storms. And this was the area right where I'm standing right now that was in a level 5 of 5 risk, a high risk for severe weather, and that's certainly verified today.
And the last time we even had one in Iowa was June of 2014. And you remember the last time there was a PDS tornado watch, and that was when we were in,
you can still hear me.
We were in Olwine. We had a tornado there, and Nick was saying I think may have been having some problems with cell service. But when we're talking about these words, we're throwing out this big stuff out there, and we're saying, high risk, and maybe all week you're getting fatigue of us saying, this was going to be a day that we had to pay serious attention to. Unfortunately, we're still seeing it happen, and we've had these multiple tornadoes that have caused damage from, yes, multiple storms, not just one storm that's made a couple of tornadoes happen. We still are seeing it happen. They're lined up here, getting close to the Mississippi River, but around DeWitt, there's been some damage of power lines getting caught in this tornado, and it was the house that was in DeWitt that was leveled.
Yeah, it was completely leveled, according to law enforcement.
And so this is still a situation going on in far eastern Iowa. And Garrett, if we can go further to the north and see if we have that other tornado warning. We have these two.
That Manchester one, I do believe, it sounds weird, but I do think that one kind of got forgotten a little bit because you traced it back a bit. That circulation moved through it at about 5:40 and then hooked right through Colesburg and Guttenberg and crossed the Mississippi, leaving...
Yeah, it went through pretty quick. I'm curious if they maybe... that came on through. There was some damage, and then there maybe is still some circulation in the area, but
that one is expired.
I think
it's populating on our MAX system.
Okay, so that's going to go away. We then have this one, 6:15, and this is in Dubuque County around Epworth and Piasta.
It's more towards the Piasta area, heading towards the Piasta area.
Yeah, so there's that area of circulation there. And that's a possibility. We also have had this warning for severe thunderstorms. Are they still saying 80-mile-per-hour winds?
Yes.
So that's heading toward Dubuque and probably getting around there now. And then we still have through the entire area right now. There's still more back toward Vinton. And we have more rain back there. No. Maybe my radar.
A little bit of stratiform.
Oh, my radar is old.
See what
yeah, we have some, just a little bit of rain back that way, and around Cedar Rapids, the heaviest, the strongest stuff has moved off to the east. So we are getting to that point toward the end of this now. Unfortunately, it's not done. Some people have lost their homes today. Some people have to clean up with their cars getting flipped over. Power outages are happening. I don't know if Johnson County Emergency Management has said anything else, but we definitely need to stay away from the Coralville area because they are dealing with a lot of cleanup that is happening there. So Johnson County Sheriff's Office, let's see. They haven't said anything, but Johnson County just saying they're saying down power lines are still live, as we mentioned earlier, and they're going to need people to stay away from areas like Tiffin, Coralville, Solon, as they are doing cleanup. And we will show you as much as we can, but definitely something that is going to take some time there. They just issued a new tornado warning for Dubuque County.
Head up that way.
And so that's on the south side of the county there, south of Dubuque.
Something to note here, too, is you notice how we had some really nice blue or greens and reds earlier, and now here we are on the back end of this, and now we're getting these really muddy muddy reds and blues and all kinds of colors. And that's because I do think that these storms are now moving faster, that it's kind of causing these errors within our own radar estimated wind speed. So when you're trying to see these kinds of things, it gets really, really difficult just because of how now fast these storms are now moving. I do believe, despite the wind gusts themselves booking through at about, what we said, about 80 miles an hour or so. Let's try to see what the speed of these guys moving by at.
I mean, they're still moving pretty fast. We have, let's see, not anything that's confirmed, but just at least they're saying tornado warning for around the Cottonville area. And then we do have still a tornado warning down to the south. We do have video from DeWitt of the tornado there. And Mike, if you want to bring that one up,
get weather warn alert.
You can see that there's a large tornado, and this was posted about 7 minutes ago. You can see a lot of really intense circulation right there. And this is around DeWitt, where we do know there has been damage. And this is continuing to push to the east, thankfully, to the east of the Mississippi. And this is now turning more into a line. Unfortunately, still some strong, very strong winds are going to be going on with that. So there's DeWitt on the kind of top side of your screen there, and that's pushing off to the east now, north and east. Let's go over around the Dubuque area, Dubuque County one. And I think this one they're letting go. I believe they're letting that one expire. So that will be let go. We do still have a little corner here of Dubuque County that's in this storm. And you can see the circulation there go actually to reflectivity, Garrett. And you can see the inflow that's wrapping in. Yeah.
What's interesting, too, how it's still kind of prolonging itself despite the fact that there's a large band of heavy showers just out towards the south, which usually should start to suck out a lot of that extra energy and moisture, but it's still going. I mean, it's fast and strong enough that it's still able to pull in air behind it and inwards.
So that's definitely telling that there could still be some circulation ongoing there. So that would be the only warning that includes a really little southeastern tip. And it would likely not even really necessarily go into Dubuque County, but that does include the little sliver there in the southeastern Dubuque County. And then we are still continuing to get some more images out of Coralville, and we can take those pictures there. So this is Coralville, and you can see cars that have just been smashed and commercial buildings that have been ruined. It looks like an apartment building that part of the roof has been taken off, and we have this siding damage. You can even see that tree limb that went into the building there, into the siding. So we have this damage, unfortunately, coming out of Coralville. We had talked about that Coral Ridge area. And definitely you can see some of the cars, the windshield smashed, and either from debris or from hail. But there are multiple locations where we have had damage today, and that goes from Keokuk County into Johnson County into portions of potentially Cedar and Jones counties and Delaware County today. We have had debris that has literally been picked up and tossed into tornadoes that were ongoing today. So the good news is that tornado threat is by and large over in eastern Iowa in terms of our coverage area, in the far southeast into Maquoketa and toward then the Mississippi River. That's where these tornadoes are still going. Beautiful news, no injuries in Johnson County. And we had multiple tornadoes in Johnson County. So that is a giant sigh of relief. The thing is that we have still cleanup to get through, and we do want to make sure that people are doing so safely. One of those spots down in Solon, meteorologist Nick Stewart, you talked to the Johnson County Sheriff. That is the best news that we could hear.
Yes, I just talked to a deputy who was kind of making the rounds, kind of passing through town. He said he has a lot of reports of damage, a lot of reports of sheds and barns damage. We had the house damage here on the far west side of Solon, the roof damage in Solon proper. But as far as he is aware, there have been no injuries attributed to the severe weather that we've faced so far today. We are actually going to head back into Solon right now. We're going to do another check on some of the tree damage and things like that are in town. But again, the best news that I've heard so far is that there are no injuries here in Johnson County, as far as the deputy is aware. Now, there are, of course, there were other tornadoes in Keokuk, Washington County. Just keeping that in mind, that there could be other injuries elsewhere. But thankfully, as far as we're aware, no injuries in Johnson County.
That is great news, because we're also talking about some towns that were hit, and Coralville is a highly populated area. We do know of damage that was around Frytown to Solon, Coralville, around the Coral Ridge Mall, and so that is some great news. We do know that it is not the, it doesn't mean that nothing happened today. We do know that people are dealing with severe damage to homes, apartments, cars, property damage, so we do not want to discount that at all, but thankfully we do have that being the case, that there are no injuries in Johnson County. We do still have warnings ongoing. We have some strong winds. We have heavy rain that's happening right now. We could still have some hail. We have these tornado warnings in the far east, one that's just clipping southern Dubuque County. We do have power outages, though, and there are a lot of them that we'll have to assess. This is in Delaware County, over 5,000 people without power there, and it's, 9,000 customers that are, so there's about half of the county there without power, where typically, or over half rather, they serve around 9,500 customers, and 5,800 customers are without power in Delaware County, and we have been watching that storm there where there's a possible tornado. We do have around 5,000 customers without power in Lynn County, and then down to Johnson County, that's around 4,400. So hopefully power can get restored there quickly. Cedar County, they have around 3,000 customers without power, and there's about just 7,900 people or customers at least there. And then we can go down to Keokuk County, where things really kind of kicked off. 2,000 without power, and they have 6,000 customers in town, and then, or in the county rather, and then Washington County, around 2,000 customers without power, and they serve around 12,000 people. So certainly going to be a lot of issues with the power having to be restored, power poles, power lines that have been potentially, really taken down and such.
I've got some video of that if we
problem.
want to scan do. This will be in Coralville. Yeah. We got some very large power lines here.
You're going to take down. Oh, we don't have internet. Okay. We can take it here shortly. Can you send it?
Right there.
Oh, here we go. Garrett has it in the scan do.
Yeah. So I'll just show you some of the video. These are.
So those are big, high-profile, large power poles.
And then you can see.
And that's right off the Coralville Strip. It looks like there's Comfort Suites and the Verizon and the Pizza Hut, of course. But some large power lines down there, and we do have, I'm just standing over here, I was just looking at the monitor, but that's okay, we're just rolling with it. We have many locations that could be dealing with, infrastructure that is down, and that may take some time to restore here. So certainly something to keep in mind if you were going down to Coralville to watch the game. And that is just going to be an area that's going to be very tough to navigate as they're dealing with those power lines down. And we're dealing with them having to work to restore those things. So it is 6:21. We do still have these warnings in place. And thankfully, we do have a lot of this moving off to the east of the Mississippi. You're getting close to it. There's a lot of strong winds still with these storms and still some confirmed tornadoes ongoing, but we do have the tornado warnings largely getting out of our coverage area. We still have Maquoketa around Davenport, and then just like the little southern sliver of Dubuque County here that's still in this warning, and then we have the severe thunderstorm warning to the east. Let's go to let's just talk about what's happening tonight.
Sure, yeah. As we continue forward throughout the rest of our night tonight, I know we were kind of talking about it, at least when I was here this morning, a little bit throughout the noon show, for the most part on time as they do continue on. We expected a lot of these storms to really initiate right around 2 o'clock or so, just off towards our west a little bit, and that was the case. Here we are at about just before sunset with the main line of storms just starting to depart the area. But, yeah, that big center of low pressure is going to continue to skirt its way out, and it's not pleasant, unfortunately.
Yeah, the issue here is that we turn to the problem of
winter.
Yeah,
again.
Still winter. And it's telling of the power of the storm. There's blizzard warnings to the north, and we have some winter weather advisories hugging the northern parts of our area here, because we now have, after we get through the severe threat, the then cold air is going to be coming in, and we have the blizzard warnings in orange. We have winter storm warnings in pink and winter weather advisories down to the south. And there's a large area of a wind advisory. And so because of this, this is, not done with the storm system as a whole. We are going to still have to deal with very powerful wind gusts as we head through tonight and into tomorrow. That could hinder cleanup today, unfortunately. We do have wind gusts expected to be going around 40 to 50 miles per hour overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. And we then have the issue of, we could see some snow. Now, thankfully, really doesn't look like significant snowfall accumulation. We do, though, have the potential of seeing some. And we do have much colder air that's going to be coming into the picture. So we are going to have the very cold air much colder air coming into place after, of course, the complete spring day today. And then we're going to go right back, bounce back up into the 60s on Sunday. Meteorologist Nick Stewart is out in Solon, who has been assessing damage there. What's going on right now, Nick?
Yeah, so we talked about it earlier. We had that damage to that roof that was in downtown Solon, right on Main and First Avenue. And you can actually see what's left of the roof here. It actually blew from this building right up here, which is the Sol Mexican Cuisine, and fell onto this other building right next door. And the scene is still very active. They're trying to assess exactly what's going on, because if you can see up towards the roof, there's actually firefighters that are kind of assessing the situation as well. Just trying to really see if the damage to the building is that severe where maybe they won't be able to return in something like that. So we're actually going to continue down this road. You can kind of see there's a lot of people here in Solon that are kind of just checking out the damage. They probably have seen the severe weather reports. They obviously got those severe weather warnings. And again, you can see here on the front of the building, that's actually where we do have the fire department kind of staging right now. They're kind of assessing some of the damage. These two buildings right next to each other, that's where appears some of the damage is. You can see the El Sol Mexican Cuisine. And one other thing that we're looking at is a lot of these signs have been kind of blown down by the winds. You see these big interstate signs marking actually bent right near the base here due to some of the strong winds that we're experiencing. It appears that most of the damage here in Solon was actually wind damage. And thankfully, it appears the worst damage is east of the area. We do have a few other reports of some more major damage north of Solon. We're going to check that out here and get you an update here in a couple of minutes, Rebecca.
Yeah, that was one of the spots where we had been hearing around Solon and Ely of 70-mile-per-hour winds. So it's possible that it could have been some straight-line wind damage. And we, of course, had these multiple tornadoes. We were mentioning, you know, if we're not in those tornado warnings, we're talking about the strong winds being the issue, too. We do have these storms that are continuing to push off to the east. This is video from Solon of home camera showing the winds coming through. Hard to say, you know, if it's tornado or if it's winds, but certainly some very powerful winds coming through and blowing things around. So, you know, it is tough to say. There's a lot of flashes going on. It's not necessarily the best angle, but it could be either one. But the way that, you know, what Nick is seeing, and you can kind of see the bend to the trees, that perhaps that is more of a straight line wind damage than a tornado.
And so I'm sure the Quad Cities damage assessors over the next few days are going to be taking a closer look at kind of determine what move through those areas. Yeah, so the next steps here is, one, of course, cleanup, and two, the Weather Service will go out and assess then the damage from these storms, and that's why photos do help as well, as long as you can do them safely, and then we can pass those along and they can start to do some of their initial assessments to determine what exactly has happened. So we'll be just totally upfront with you about this situation. We are going to finish our coverage around 6:30. We have multiple crews that are out in the field right now getting information. Nick is out in Solon. We're going to Coralville, of course, to get some more information about what has happened there. And we are going to continue to put out information on iwasnewsnow.com. We will then be back at 9 and 10 tonight. Garrett's going to go to sleep, and we are going to continue to discuss what happened today and what you can expect then in the weather situation for the next several days. But this severe threat is winding down now in our area. So we can all take a breath. We knew that this was going to come through. We had been saying about 2 to 6 p.m., and that's exactly what's happened now. We have some storms kind of hugging in the far east. What we do know is that there has been a lot of damage around Coralville, around Solon. We know that there's been damage around Frytown, in portions of Keokuk, and some parts of Washington County, in the western parts of Washington County, potentially around Cedar and Jones counties as well. If you have any information, if you have any photos that you want to share with us, you can do so on our website by going to iwasnewsnow.com. There is a link to chime in. And this is not to put yourself in any danger and go into the power lines. We don't want you to do that. Every town here in eastern Iowa can be covered. We're going to try our best to give you the full picture of what happened today, but you can help us, too, by sending those photos in and giving us a picture of what's happening. We do have this watch that's out until 8 p.m. They have already started to push it and start to cancel it in parts of the area. But this was a rare situation, and we knew that unfortunately it was going to be a day where we were going to have to deal with some strong storms for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah, this is obviously something that does not happen very often in this area. Obviously, with that high risk that was issued earlier this morning, we knew what we were kind of in for, and it was all about folks being able to heed the warnings, have a way to get those warnings. And it's great news out of Johnson County that there have been 0 deaths. That means people did exactly what we wanted them to, found a safe spot, and heeded those warnings. So kudos to all you folks at home.
Absolutely, and not even any injuries reported out of Johnson County. I think at one point we did get one injury, I think from the Keota area, possibly from where those initial tornadoes were coming through. But it's the first time in almost 10 years that a high risk has been issued. And the last time we had, a widespread severe threat that garnered a PDS sort of watch, that particularly dangerous situation watch, was the August 10th derecho. And these two days cannot be, completely correlated, but it's a type of situation where we knew it was going to be a particularly dangerous situation. And so we're thankful that we're not hearing about significant injuries thus far, and we do know that there's structural damage, and it is the worst kind of day for a meteorologist when you have the thing that you love causing damage like we're seeing across the area, especially in very populated areas and in a place that we live and we love. So hopefully damage can be cleaned up quickly, and we do still have strong winds that are coming in on the back side of this system that will be coming through tonight into tomorrow morning. We do want to make sure we're giving people space, the crews space to work, and you have to make sure that you are letting them, especially staying away from those power lines, super duper important. Putting on sneakers and shoes when you have to get out if you have an area that has been damaged. I know you want to check out what's going on, or you maybe have friends and family there and their power's out, but just please give them the space to do the cleanup and do the work. So we have these strong winds that are starting to move in right now, winds that are going around 30, 40 miles per hour. We do have very large low-pressure system coming in, wind gusts 40, 50 miles per hour that are going to continue tonight into tomorrow. That could also hinder some cleanup. So we're going to see these winds start to pick up, though, within the next probably 2 to 3 hours, unfortunately. As the sun goes down, it's going to be tough for the crews to continue that, but I'm sure they're going to try and restore power through the night as much as they can. We do have some more damage that's coming in out of Coralville that we've gotten some more images. And this is just a lot of damage that's been happening, debris scattered around, and some just pieces of homes and businesses. We've seen a lot of cars that are flipped, telling of how just violent these storms have been. And this is just one of many, unfortunately, across the area today. Let's go back to the radar, and we'll do one more thing here. We'll just talk about the storms are now pushing off to the east. We do not have any more tornado warnings. We do have severe thunderstorm warnings. They're pushing off to the east, though, those storms, and I do believe that those warnings are going to be let go here soon. So we are going to wrap up our coverage here of the severe weather, and we are going to continue to gather information about the damage that has happened and continue to give you a recap. We'll be on Iowa's News Now at 9. I know there's something exciting happening this evening that maybe you're not going to watch at 9 o'clock. We're going to have coverage, though, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on our website, iowasnewsnow.com. And if you want to join us at 10, we'll be back on CBS with Iowa's News Now at 10. And we are thankful that everyone was able to take shelter, and we have not heard of significant injuries so far today. We will continue to give you updates as we have them, but the severe threat is now winding down here, thankfully, in eastern Iowa.
Get weather warn alerts on all your devices. Stay ahead of the storm with Iowa's News Now weather